families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, I'm Elaine Cobb, and welcome to this week's edition of Families Divided. Did you know that some personality disorders can lead to some behaviors that create alienation? That's what an expert on the subject, Bill Eddy, shares with us this week. Plus, we will have another message from one of the many great speakers who will be a part of our Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills Conference coming in September to Durham, North Carolina. You can find out all the details about how you can attend this in-person event on our website, familyaccess.info. Stay tuned. Bill Eddy will join us right after these messages.
Often, dealing with the issue of parental alienation can seem like trying to untangle the biggest rope in the world. You don't have to untangle parental alienation alone. The XO Foundation offers help through empowerment, equity, and education. Find out how the XO Foundation can help you by visiting thexofoundation.org.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Parker, and I wrote Coercive Relationships: Find the Answers You Seek. I wanted to reach more survivors in dealing with this very difficult issue of coercive control in their relationships. This book is also helpful for professionals. You can buy this book wherever you like to buy your books, and you can sign up for my blog at jennifercparkermssw.com. Thank you.
Parental alienation is sad. When parents can't arrive at a solution amicably, it may be time to seek legal help for the sake of the children involved. In Florida, that's when you should contact Sparkman Law, specializing in litigating and defending complex and severe cases of parental alienation. Contact Shazia Sparkman, founder and managing attorney of Sparkman Law. Learn more at sparkmanlawfirm.com.
Hello. So I'm Bill Eddy, and today I'm going to be talking about personality disorders and how that can relate to children becoming resistant or refusing to have contact with a parent or grandparents or other people. So personality disorders aren't talked much about these days, but they're going to be becoming talked about more and more as we realize the part they play in some of the difficulties in families nowadays. So personality disorders are a diagnosis for mental health professionals, and there's a manual that mental health professionals use to identify if somebody has a personality disorder or not, mostly for the sake of giving people counseling and helping them overcome a mental health problem. Now, what's interesting about personality disorders is it's a mental health problem that's really widespread, and the manual for mental health professionals says about 15% of the United States adult population probably has a personality disorder. But similar to addiction and alcoholism, it's not talked about much. And we may be where we were about 50 years ago with addiction, substance abuse, all of that, with personality disorders, because people are just starting to talk about them and trying to understand them. So how they're related to alienating behaviors is really part of who they are, because our personality is part of how we regularly think, how we regularly deal with feelings, and how we regularly behave. And so when people have a regular way of behaving that's alienating, that's pushing away, that's separating people, that's something that may be built into their personality. And I should tell you that personality disorders mostly come from inborn traits that people may have at birth or from early childhood experience. So, for example, if a child is abused a lot, that increases their chance of having a personality disorder. And if a child is indulged a lot, they get to do whatever they want, get away with whatever they want, that also is a higher risk for a personality disorder. So let me tell you more specifically. So personality disorders are a mental health problem that you shouldn't tell somebody you think they have, because part of the problem is they're very defensive. And so if you tell someone with a personality disorder that you think they have one, they're going to become even more defensive. And when they're defensive, they often are angry and attack the people saying these things about them or people close to them. So personality disorder is defined as an enduring pattern of behavior that's problematic. Now, generally, people with a personality disorder do not look at their own behavior, and that's part of the problem. They don't reflect on themselves. And so you can't give them insight into themselves. You can't say, "Can't you see what you're doing?" Because they can't see what they're doing. And so there's different strategies to deal with them. But this isn't really about that today. It's just about understanding this pattern of behavior. So personality disorders mean that person generally doesn't change. So what they're doing today, they'll probably be doing 5 years from now and 10 years from now. So understanding that helps you know that trying to hit them over the head with what you think about them isn't going to help. So there's other ways to deal with managing the situation if you even have a chance, because usually an alienating parent is someone that's not even talking to you, or if they are, they're certainly not listening to you. So they generally don't connect their problems in life to their own behavior. So with that background, I want to talk about 3 clusters of personality disorders. And the way the manual for mental health professionals breaks it down is there's cluster A, B, and C. Cluster A tends to be people who avoid other people. Say paranoid personality, schizoid, schizotypal. We're not going to talk about those. Cluster B is what I'm going to talk about. This is borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. The reason I'm going to talk about these is those are the ones that tend to be high conflict and tend to engage in alienating behaviors. Alienating behaviors is saying that people are all good or all bad. And so now your dad's all bad. You know, we got along for 5 years, but now he's all bad. Or now your mom is just totally stupid, and I can understand you want nothing to do with her. And so you get that kind of all or nothing. And that seems to be especially cluster B, which is the conflict, the high conflict. Then cluster C tends to avoid conflict, avoidant personality, dependent personality, obsessive compulsive personality. So these tend to avoid conflict, and you're probably not dealing with somebody like that, except that some people have more than one personality disorder. And so they might, say, have narcissistic personality disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Then that means they're very self-centered and they're very demanding that things be exact. They're demanded of themselves, but they demand it of other people. And if they're in a legal case going to court because perhaps a child doesn't want to see the other parent, they justify it with pages and pages and pages of paperwork. That's part of the obsessive compulsive traits, and the narcissistic traits being very self-absorbed. And so children around this kind of behavior start absorbing it. And that's what we're going to talk about now, is cluster B personality disorders and their characteristics. So these are generally interpersonal disorders. They show up when you're engaged with other people. They tend to involve, most commonly, children, parents, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, romantic dating partners, close friends even. This is who they attack. This is who they blame, and who they may just yell and scream. Their emotions aren't very well managed. And so this yelling and screaming and blaming behavior lands on kids, and kids absorb it. And they don't have the ability to not absorb that. And so with the intensity of emotions and the intensity of blame, you get a lot of high conflict situations. And children, when they feel torn between their parents, and one of them's real emotional and one of them's pretty reasonable, guess who they tend to form the closer bond with? The parent who's real emotional, because by forming a bond with that parent, they calm that parent down, and that parent's more likely to like them. A reasonable parent, the children know they're loved by and they're secure with. And so it's interesting that what happens is that children often are pulled, not consciously, towards a more high conflict, highly emotional, all or nothing thinking parent. And so that's what we often see in these high conflict cases. And when we have high conflict custody disputes, high conflict divorce disputes, one parent may be particularly intensely emotional, and that's the parent that the child often is pulled towards. And they say they don't want to be involved with the other parent, who may be more reasonable, because that upsets the parent they're trying to calm down. And so it's sometimes a paradox to people. They go, why would the child want to be with the parent whose behavior is the worst behavior, and not be with the parent whose behavior is the most reasonable behavior? And especially it's that emotional factor. So let's look at the alienating behaviors of some cluster B personality disorders. So these are identified in the manual for mental health professionals as the dramatic personality disorders, the erratic personality disorders, and the emotional personality disorders. And so the idea here is, if you have a real dramatic parent, if you have an erratic parent that's shifting around, today they're happy, tomorrow they're angry, and the next day they're depressed and sad, and it's just like a roller coaster. And that's how people often describe it around some people with these characteristics, is the drama, being erratic, but especially being emotional. And that's what I want to emphasize. I was already starting to talk about that. The intense emotions often attract the child, so the child can try to calm the parent with the emotions that are too intense, too out of control, and too shared with the child. And this isn't just angry emotions. This could be really sad emotions. And I think of a woman I know who, in her 50s, talked about when her parents went through a divorce. She remembered when she was 12. She said, we'd go to our father's house, like on the weekend, And our father was in tears about the divorce. He was sad, he was crying, and he would never say a bad word about our mother. But we knew he was crying because of what she had done and that she wanted the divorce. So we were angry at our mother because she made our father cry. Well, the father might not have been crying just because of what was happening. He may have been crying because he had a personality that couldn't control and manage his emotions. Because it's not good for parents to share too much of that. And most parents are careful. They don't show their most intense emotions about the other parent around the child, and they try to speak positively of the other parent. But in these cases, as an alienating behavior is unmanaged and too intense emotions really can tip the balance. So the child goes with that person to calm them down, and because they know that the other parent's making them upset, they resist going to the other parent. And some people watching and listening may be that other parent, and having a child or grandchild be rejecting towards you is astonishing. And yet, this emotional process seems to be a lot of what's happening. Now, I also want to talk about some research on personality disorders and their interpersonal behavior. That's between two people or more. And some research suggests that they have dominating traits, that they're domineering, they're vindictive, and they're intrusive. So when you think about this, think of a child with one parent trying to dominate the other parent. And that can be through a variety of things they say, things they do. But what the child learns is that one person's superior to the other. One's trying to dominate the other. We see this particularly with narcissistic personalities who see themselves as superior. So they're trying to dominate the other person. Sometimes the child sees domestic violence. The person's trying to dominate their spouse through physical violence. And yet people wonder, sometimes the child wants to be with that abusive parent. And you wonder, why is that? Because they're trying to calm down that abusive parent. And so they're trying to say everything you do is wonderful and everything the other parent does is terrible. And yet that other parent may be the victim of the domestic violence and the victim of a campaign against them by this parent. Because what we see is cluster B personality disorders tend to see all relationships as adversarial, as kind of a win-lose, so they want to be dominating to win, domineering. Vindictive is if things don't go their way, they want to punish people. And they often, we see in high conflict divorce cases, they want to punish the other parent for the divorce. And so I'll show her or I'll show him, I'll make their lives miserable for divorcing me. And so we see vindictive behavior. We see a lot of that in family court with what people are willing to say about each other. And you realize we're in court today because that person has a personality problem and they want to blame somebody else for their own problems. Intrusive, when you think about what happens, they share a lot of what they're thinking and feeling and doing with the child. They don't have normal parent-child boundaries. So their emotional boundaries are missing. They say everything, they tell everything. And in that way, they're very intrusive. They may say, one case I had, as a lawyer, I represented mom. She had 2/3 of the parenting time. Dad had 1/3. But dad had a high conflict personality disorder. And he kept quizzing his son on what's your new stepfather doing now? What's your mother doing now? And shared his emotions and intrusiveness. He would just ask, what are they doing? And over a period of a few years, he was able to turn his son against his mother, even though he had most of the time with his mother. So alienating behaviors often are very emotional behaviors intrusive, vindictive, domineering, and so forth. So this is mostly about that today, but I want to tell you about a couple things that people can do to perhaps improve situations. We have a method we developed called New Ways for Families. And this method is ordered by some courts in several states and some provinces. And the idea with this is to give parents skills for communicating reasonably, for managing their emotions, for using flexible thinking instead of all or nothing, I'm all good and the other person's all bad thinking. So we developed it as a counseling method. We developed it as an online class. So we have 12 one-hour classes that anybody can take online. And we have coaching with the online program as an option. And then we have a class that sometimes people take called a decision skills class. The main thing that's available to anybody is the online class. And we have that available, I believe it's $57. So it's for 12 sessions. And it's through our website, conflictplaybook.com. And we also have a website, highconflictinstitute.com. So these are some resources. We also teach people our BIF method of emails and text, which help calm the conversation so we don't escalate the conflict. And that stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm. So these are resources you can get on our website for High Conflict Institute. We have two websites. highconflictinstitute.com is geared to professionals, but anybody can find articles, books, videos that may be useful to you there. And then conflictplaybook.com is where we have the 12-session parenting class at a pretty low cost. So like I said, anybody can take that. Now we encourage people, if they're in a court case, to say, ask a judge to order both of you to get New Ways for Family skills by being ordered to take the online class and perhaps take coaching with that. But at least get the online class. That way you get the other parent exposed to flexible thinking, managed emotions, moderate behaviors, and checking themselves. So that's my message to you today. I hope this has been informative, and I really want to wish you well. Hang in there. This is the kind of thing that so many people don't understand, but just know that many people do. So you have the support of many people if you're going through something like this. Best wishes.
Our thanks to Bill Eddy for his important contribution to this edition of Families Divided. When we come back, you'll meet one of the speakers coming to Durham in September for the conference, Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills.
In families dealing with alienation, communication during conflict is often very difficult. This fall, Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present a special in-person conference to address that very issue. Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills will be held September 9th through the 11th at the Marriott Research Triangle Park in Durham, North Carolina. You'll learn from experts how to master skills that can reduce anxiety, anger, and stress in alienation situations. Join Event Director Elaine Cobb, the founder and president of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, and conference moderator Dr. Colleen Murray as they present a lineup of highly respected experts, including keynote speaker Dr. Jeffrey Gardier, plus presentations by Bill Eddy, Megan Hunter, Dr. Joshua Coleman, Dr. Mark Mosk, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Dr. Sue Kornbluth, Shazia Sparkman, and Lisa Rothfuss. Mark your calendar now, September 9th through the 11th, for Using and Refining Interpersonal Skills, hosted by Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PASCA, Parental alienation is child abuse. Visit familyaccess.info for more details on the conference and secure your attendance. Seating is limited.
At Victor's Crown, our focus is on you, our clients. When you arrive, our goal is that you will feel at home, from our welcoming atmosphere to our serene surroundings. Everything we do at Victor's Crown is done with our clients in mind. We have comfortable seating areas for both adults and children. A large screen TV with surround sound where clients can be occupied with wholesome entertainment while they wait. We offer complimentary refreshments such as coffee, tea, water, and snacks. Due to the present COVID pandemic, our in-person appointments are restricted to selected cases, and those are held in our luxurious outdoor open-air meeting space that we affectionately refer to as the COVID Cabana, which was built specifically for our clients to offer them the most comfortable and relaxing outdoor space available. All our other clients are offered secured web-based telemed sessions where they can connect with us from anywhere in the world.
I'd like to invite you to attend the Family Access Conference in Durham, North Carolina in September of 2022, where I will be talking about how to move beyond these limiting mindsets that keep our families stuck in the past and help them move towards a more future-focused reunification process. This is a workshop that's for all family members and clinicians wanting to affect change in their relationships and in their therapeutic practice.
Join us next week on Families Divided when our guest will be Caitlin Burgess, who will be telling us that if you're trying an alienation case, why you probably need an expert witness. If you'd like to request prayer for your family, please send an email to prayersforfamilies@gmail.com.